All right, so now it says over here, the program should repeat this 10 times and then display the number of times that the user correctly gets the selected color. Be sure to modularize. Okay, we've basically created all our methods. Now let's create a method that's going to compare the two colors and see and check to see. Let's create a boolean method, a method that's going to return a boolean, which is return true or false if the computer color matches the user's color. So basically, let's create a method that's going to take two arguments. It's going to take the user's color and it's going to take the computer's color. It's going to compare them and return true if they are the same. It's going to return false if they are not the same. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a method, another method that's going to compare the two colors, right? So I'm going to create a method. It's also going to be a public static method. Return type is going to be a boolean because it's going to return either true or false, okay? And I'm going to call this method compare colors. Okay, I'm going to define the structure. So it's comparing colors, right? It needs two arguments. First of all, it needs a string. The first one is going to be a string, which is going to be the computer's color. So string computer color. And then the second one is going to be the user's color. So that's also going to be a string user color. All right, so in this method, what we want to do is compare to see if they're the same. We want to compare to see if the computer color is the same as the user color. All right, so if I'm going to create the structure of the if statement here, I'm going to say that if the computer color, okay, dot equals, so now we are comparing string here. I'm going to say if the computer color dot equals, I'm going to also add one more thing, say equals ignore case. If the computer color dot equals ignore case is the same as the user color, oops, sorry, not the string user color, but in the variable user color is the same as the user color, then we have a match, right? Then I'm going to say return 1, 2, 3, 4, return. I'll explain that in a second. Return true. You know what? I'll actually let me just start explaining now. Okay, so what I'm saying is when this method is called, it's going to take in two arguments, computer color and then user color. And then it's going to compare this way. It's going to say if computer color dot equals ignore case user color, meaning that if the user color was, let's say, green, if I typed in green like I did before, or blue like I did before, like this, and the computer types in green like it's defined here, you know, green. Okay, so meaning, oops, blue. I meant blue, like it's defined here, blue. Okay, all right. So if I chose blue and the computer chose blue like this, so all I'm saying is, so when whoever calls this method, when they pass in the two colors, the computer color and the user color, blue and blue, it's going to say if the computer color, which is blue, the capital with a capital B, dot equals ignore, okay. So if the computer color is equal to the user color, ignore the case, meaning compare these two strings, but ignore the case. Ignore whether it's capital or small. If not, ignore whether they are capital or small. Just ignore it. Just compare the letters to see if they're the same. If the computer, there's another method called dot equals. Now this is going to basically compare to see if they're exactly the same, meaning if the capitalization is the same. So basically each character has a value attached to it, right? So character B will have a value attached to it. Let's say it's going to have a number attached to it. I think it's 60. No, I think it's 90 something. But yeah, each of these characters have a number. So basically all these characters, all the numbers that represent these characters are going to be added together, and all these characters, all the numbers that are associated with these characters are going to be added together as well. And basically the answer is going to be compared, and basically if they're the same, then that means they're the same. That means these are the same. But guess what? The character blue, capital blue, the character capital blue, capital B, not capital blue. Capital B has a different value than the lowercase b. Uppercase B has a different value than lowercase b. So basically, when you say if computer color dot equals user color, it will return false, because this blue is not the same as this blue, because one has an uppercase B and one has a lowercase b. Although the letters are the same, the case is not the same. But over here, I'm saying if computer color dot equals ignore the case. If the computer color is equal to user color, ignore the case and check to see if computer color is equal to user color. Ignore whether one is small, one is capital letter. You just ignore the case and check to see if the letters in there are the same. Is B equal to this B? Yes. Ignore the case. Ignore the fact that one is big and one is small. If is L the same as L, is U the same as U, and so on. Is E the same as E, and so on. So ignore the case and check to see if computer color is equal to user color. If that's the case, that's why I said ignore case. So if that's the case, then go ahead and return. Then that means there's a match, right? So go ahead and return true, because this method is returning a boolean, either true or false. Else, right? Else, then return false. Else return false. Okay, else return false. Else, that means they are not the same. So we'll go ahead and return false, right? So we created a method that does that, right? So we can, in our test over here, after it displays, the computer selected this color, and then the user selected this color, we can also call this method compare colors to see if it's returning, or it's basically doing, if they're the same, if the colors are the same. So I'm going to say over here that if, hold on one second, I'm going to say if, let me create a structure. I'm going to call the method and say if compare colors. I'm going to pass in the two colors, computer color. Over here, okay, when I'm defining the methods, it doesn't matter if this is the computer color or this is the user color. I can just change this to color 1. It doesn't matter if the first argument is computer color, the second argument is user color. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to name this color 1 and color 2. And if color 1 dot equals ignore case color 2, okay, it doesn't matter what order you put. I can start with the user color first, or I can start with the computer color. It doesn't matter. That's why I'm naming this color 1 or color 2. Okay, all I need to check is color 1 the same as color 2? Ignore the case. That's all I want to know. Okay, so it's better to do it that way. So if compare colors with S, okay, another color 1, I want it to be computer color. It doesn't matter. And then the color 2 is going to be user color. These two values. Now remember, this method is going to return true or false. True if they're the same, false if they're not the same. This statement is going to run only if, this if statement is going to do what's in this block only if this whole method returns true. Okay, and remember, this whole method will return true if these two colors are the same. It's going to return false if these two colors are not the same. This if statement is going to do what's in this if block only if this compare colors, this whole compare colors method call returns true. If it returns false, what's in this if block won't run. If it returns true, what's in this if block will run. Right? So I can call it this way. I can say if compare colors, computer color and user color, then okay, if it's returning, this is also equivalent to, or the same as saying if compare colors, computer color, user color is equal to, I'm using double equals to compare. If it's equal to true, but we don't have to do that. We know that compare colors is returning true or false. Okay, if it returns true, then this is going to work. If it's equal to true, okay, then do what's in this if block. We can do that. It's equivalent to that. but this if block will do what's in this if block if compare colors returns true, if the result of what you're putting in these two parentheses is true. And we know compare colors is returning either true or false. If it's false, then what's in this if block will run. If it's true, what's in this if block will run. So if this returns true, then there's a match, right? So we want to go ahead and say they match. We want to go ahead and just print out they match. This is just, I'm just testing out stuff before we go to the question. So system.out.println, I can say, I can just say match, right? Else then system.out.println no match. Okay, so now we're just using the method that we defined, passing in the two colors and then printing out match or no match, okay, depending on the colors. I'm going to compile this and then run it. Computer has chosen the color. User guess the computer's color. I'm going to type in blue, and now it's going to say the computer selected yellow, you selected blue, no match. Okay, that's true. Red, the computer selected green, you selected red, no match. That's very true. Let me try something as blue. See, the computer selected blue, you selected blue, match. It didn't matter if the case was capital blue. I keep on saying capital blue. It doesn't matter if the case is, has a capital B. This has a lowercase b. It doesn't matter because we fixed it in the code. So we are keeping the program flexible and saying, hey, type in whatever case. Just make sure you are typing in the same color as the computer, and you're fine. And because I guessed correctly, it said match. Okay. So now we can see that our method is working here. Compare colors is working, but that's not what the question wants us to do. We were just testing it to see if it works. The question wants us to say, it says over here, after we're done displaying the name of the randomly selected color by the computer, it says the program should repeat this 10 times and then display the number of times the user correctly guessed the selected color. We know that when we call the compare colors method, it's going to return true. So anytime it returns true, that means there's a match. That means the user guessed correctly the computer's color. So we know that that's a way of telling if the user guessed correctly. The program wants us to repeat this whole process 10 times, and then after it's done, asking the user 10 times to basically type in or guess the computer's color correctly. It should display how many times it guessed the computer's color correctly, right? So that means we're going to use a loop to iterate 10 times. That means we're going to use a loop to basically ask the user 10 times to guess the computer's color, right? So I'm going to go ahead and create a for loop for that. I'm going to go ahead and create a for loop that is going to start from 1 all the way to 10, iterate 10 times, and ask the user to guess the computer's color 10 times. So I'm going to say for guess number. Well, first of all, guess number is going to be an integer, because that's going to be the 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 10. It's just going to hold integers. So for int guess number, or I'm even going to call it current guess number. Current guess number is going to be initialized to 1 initially. We're starting from 1. So this loop is starting from 1 all the way to 10. So I've specified my starting number, which is 1. I'm going to say as long as current guess number is less than or equal to 10, because that's how many times the program wants us to specify. The program wants us to ask the user to guess the correct color the computer selected. So as long as the current guess number is less than or equal to 10, do what's in the for loop And before you come back up and check to see if current guess number is less than or equal to 10, add 1 to current guess number. So current guess number plus plus. You can also say current guess number is equal to what's already stored in current guess number plus over here plus 1. Or you can also say current guess number plus equals 1. You know, you can do it both ways. But I'm going to do mine current guess number plus plus. Okay. So we are starting from 1 all the way to 10, right? Each iteration we are adding 1 to guess number. So what this is doing is basically we're starting from 1 and we are checking to see is 1 less than or equal to 10. Do what's in the for loop. Before you come back up and check to see if current guess number is less than or equal to 10, add 1 to current guess number and check to see again. Now current guess number becomes 2. Is 2 less than or equal to 10? Yes. Do what's in the for loop, add 1 to 2, becomes 3. Current guess number becomes 3. Now it's 3 less than or equal to 10. So basically we are starting from 1 all the way to 10. We are iterating 10 times. Starting from 1 and adding 1 each time, checking to make sure that it's less than or equal to 10. Keep iterating all the way to 10. Anything that is not less than or equal to 10, meaning anything greater than 10, this loop is going to stop. So meaning we are starting from 1 all the way to 10. We are iterating 10 times. So while we are iterating 10 times, what we want to do each time what we want to do is, each time we want to go ahead and we define these variables here. Each time what we want to do is we want to generate the computer's color. Okay, like this. So I'll delete this. Each time we want to generate the computer's color. Each time we want to get the user's color, so I'm going to cut this and paste it. Each time we want to get the user's color as well. We want to display what the color that the computer selected, the color that the user selected, that as well. So let me take this back. So we want to do that as well, right? And now we want to compare to see if what the color that the computer selected and the color that the user selected is the same. So we have a method here that does that. So I'm going to use the if statement we did previously. I'm going to say if compare colors. Okay, if compare colors, and the colors that I want to compare is computer color and user color. Okay, computer color and user color. So if compare color, computer color, and user color, okay, computer colors. The method is called computer colors. So S. So if compare colors, computer color, and user color, meaning if it returns true, this if statement again will run if this whole method returns true, meaning if this evaluates is true. So if it's true, if they match, the program said that when the loop is done, when the iterations are done, it should go ahead and display the number of times the user correctly guessed the selected color, right? So in main, let's create a variable that's going to keep track of how many times the user guessed it correctly. Initially, it's going to be 0, right? So let's create an integer variable which is going to hold how many times the user guessed the color correctly. So the variable is going to call, I'm going to call it correct guesses, or user correct guesses. User correct guesses is going to be equal to 0 initially, because when the program starts, he or she has guessed 0 times. Okay, 0 times. So anytime there's a match, because when we know that compare colors is going to return true, okay, if the two colors match. So anytime there's a match, we want to add 1 to user correct guesses. Initially it's 0. So if there's a match here, if this returns true, what's in the if block will run. If there's a match, then user correct guesses, we want to add 1 to it. User correct guesses is going to be equal to what's already stored in user correct guesses plus 1. Okay, so initially it's 0, right? So it's going to be 0 is equal to what's already stored in user correct guesses, which is 0 plus 1. Now 0 plus 1 evaluates to 1. So 1 is going to be stored in user correct guesses. If there's a match again, we know user correct guess is going to hold 1. We're adding 1. We're adding 1 to 1. Okay, so it's going to be 1 plus 1. 1 plus 1 will be 2. 2 is going to be stored in user correct guesses. If there's a match again, we know user correct guesses holds 2. So it's going to be 2 plus 1. 2 plus 1 is going to be 3. 3 is going to be stored in user correct guesses. So basically, we are keeping track of the correct guesses of the user. Okay, how many times the user guessed correctly. So anytime there's a match, let's go ahead and keep track of the user correct guesses. And after we are done with all the loops, all the iterations, we want to go ahead, and the program said it should display the number of times the user correctly guessed the selected color. So we can come down here and say system.out.println. We can say system.out.println. We can create a string and say the user selected. Now, just to make this, just to put everything in methods and make this program even look nicer, we can create a method that's going to display the number of times the user guessed correctly. Just to display it. Its job is to just take in how many times the user guessed correctly, and then display it, right? So let's do that. Let's create a method. So it's going to be a public static method. Okay, it's going to return an integer because it's going to return the user correct guesses. Okay, that's what it's going to return. So user correct guesses, we're going to give it to this method as an argument. As an argument, meaning we have to define a parameter for this method. But guess what? It's going to take this user correct guesses and return it. That's why it's returning. It's going to return an int. And user correct guesses is going to hold an integer. I'm going to call this method display. Okay, display user correct guesses. Okay, display user correct guesses. I'm going to since this method is going to display the user correct guesses, it's going to need the number of guesses, right? So I'm going to define this method in such a way that it's going to need the user correct guesses. Okay, all this method is doing is just displaying the user correct guesses, but because I want to just define everything in methods so this program looks nicer, that's why I'm doing that. So display user correct guesses is going to need as a parameter the user correct guesses. So I'm going to define an int variable. I'm going to call it user correct guesses here. So it's going to need user correct guesses, and I'm going to just display a message saying system.out.println. I'm going to say the user guessed. I'm going to say out of 10, or basically out of. I'm going to say the user guessed correctly, or the user correctly guessed. That's the same thing. The user correctly guessed. I'm going to concatenate it to this variable that I'm going to be given. Whoever calls this method is going to pass this argument into this parameter variable. So the user correctly guessed with a D guessed. So since I will have the value stored in the variable that the user passes, right? So it's going to be the user correctly guessed user correct guesses, because user correct guesses is going to hold the value of the user correct guesses. The user is going to pass this variable in this method as an argument. So the user correctly guessed user correct guesses. Okay, we're going to concatenate it with a string and say times. So if it's 7, it's going to read the user correctly guessed 7 times, right? But this method is going to accept this. This method is going to accept this this variable. Actually, this method is not going to return anything. It's just going to display a message, right? So let's define it like that. Let's define it in such a way that it's going to just return nothing. I was thinking otherwise. I was thinking it was going to return it and then I'll display it again. No, that's not how I wanted it to work. I just wanted it to take the number of correct guesses and display it. So it's not going to return anything. Okay, it's not going to. I don't want it to return anything. I just want it to display the value that the correct guesses. So I'm going to change this return type. Okay, so it's going to be a public static void. Since it's going to return nothing, it's going to return void. I want it to return void now, because all I wanted to do is take the correct guesses and display it, right? So now it's going to return void, return nothing. And then over here, I'm going to call the method after I'm done with the iterations. After I've kept track of the user correct guesses, I'm going to call the method which is display user correct guesses. Yeah, display user correct guesses. And remember, user correct guesses takes in the value of user correct guesses, or basically the correct guesses of the user, which is going to be stored in the variable user correct guesses here. So remember, user correct guesses is going to keep track of the correct guesses of the user. I'm passing it into this method, display user correct guesses, which is just going to display that variable. It's not going to return anything. It's just going to display that variable. So when I call this method is just going to display the user correctly guessed whatever number is stored in this variable times whatever number is stored in this variable times. It's going to display the string. Okay, so that's what the program wants us to do. One last thing, while it's asking the user this many times, I want the user to kind of keep track of where he or she is at the moment. Yeah, I want the user to basically keep track of that. I want the user to be able to know, which number I am on. Okay, which guess I'm on at the moment. So it's going to ask the user over here to say, let's see, over here when it's getting the user color, it's going to ask the user this, get user color over here. It's going to ask the user guess the computer's color, right? We can even modify this method and make it even more complex, right? We can I mean, not complex per se, but make it more organized and more nice. Since over here, since current guess number is keeping track of the correct guess number, we can do that. But maybe I don't want to confuse anyone. But you know what? It's fine. You can still do it. We know current guess number here is keeping track of the current guess, starting from 1 all the way to 10. So each time it's either holding 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 all the way to 10. And we know get user color is what's asking the user to type in the correct guess, right? Or basically, I'll type in type in the computer's guess. But there's no way it's not saying guess number 1, user guess the computer's color. Guess number 2, user guess the correct computer's color. It's still going to repeat this string. User guess the computer's color. User guess the computer's color. It's going to keep on doing that 10 times. We want a way to be able to display to the user, hey, this is guess number 1. This is guess number 2. This is guess number 3. This variable here, current guess number, is what's keeping track of that number, starting from 1 to 2 to 3 all the way to 10. That's the current guess number. So I'm going to modify this method over here, which is get user color, to accept another argument, which is basically going to be well, there's so many ways you can do it, but the way I have done it here in the loop, I'm going to modify this get user color to take in a variable, which is I'm going to call it a guess number. Okay, so int guess number. The reason why I'm doing that is because in this method, this get user color is called in this method each time, and each time I want to pass the current guess number so that they can display it with this message. Okay, So each time I want to pass in the current guess number to this method, so we can display if it's current guess number 1 or guess number 2 or guess number 3 or guess number 4. I want to pass in that number here so that they can display with this message and say guess number 4 is guess number 4, user guess the computer's color. Guess number 5, user guess the computer's color. So that's what I want to do. I'm defining guess. Well, I said it was going to return a string. Yeah, that's fine. It's still returning a string here. This is just displaying it. So I'm passing in the guess number, and I want to use the guess number in the string, and I'm going to say over here, I'm going to say guess number. I'm going to go ahead and close the string, concatenate it, okay, with guess number. Let me go ahead and space it here. So guess number, okay, and then if it's 1, it's going to be guess number 1. I'm going to concatenate it with, we'll say, a period and a parentheses. So a period and a parentheses here. So guess number 1, period, parentheses, and I'm going to say user, put a space here, user gets the computer's color. So this variable was going to basically display the number that was passed into this method here. So in this method now, I'm going to, after I've passed in the scanner, I want to go ahead and also pass in the current guess number here. Now I just want this to be organized, and that's why I'm doing this. So I'm passing in the current guess number. So initially it's going to pass in 1, right? 1 is going to be used here this way. 1 is going to be passed in here. So it's going to say guess number 1, user guess the computer's color. The second time it iterates, it's going to pass in, so current guess number is going to be 2, so it's going to pass in 2 into this method, right? So it's going to come up into the, in the method itself, it's going to use it this way. It's going to say guess number is going to be 2, right? So it's going to say guess number 2, user guess the computer's color. So it's going to be logical. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So let me go ahead and compile this. We have a couple of errors, so let's fix that. It says cannot find symbol guess number user. I type guess number user. I didn't have to. Over here, the parameter is guess number, not guess number user. So guess number. So when I compile this, now it works. All right, so let's go ahead and run this, and let's see how the whole program looks now. So now it says, see, it says computer has chosen a color. Guess number 1, user guess the computer's colors. Now we know what we are keeping track of the guess number. So I'm going to say red. And now it says the computer selected blue, you selected red. Computer has chosen the color. Guess number 2, user guessed the computer's color. So red. Now so far I didn't get this correct. So far my number of guesses is 0, right? It's also keeping track of how many times I'm guessing this correctly. So red again. I chose, the computer selected red, I chose red. Computer selected yellow, I chose red. So this is guess number 3. So still I'm off. The computer selected yellow, you chose red. Guess number 4, blue. The computer chose orange, you chose blue, you selected blue. Guess number 5, red. The computer selected orange, you chose red. See, guess number 6. Computer. I'm supposed to space this out a little bit so it looks clean, but we can see it's working. I'm going to type in red again. Computer selected blue, you chose red. I'm going to type in blue. Computer selected green, you selected blue. I'm going to type in blue again. Okay, now I got a match. It says computer selected blue, you selected blue. So that means I have one correct guess, right? So you should keep track of that and display it to us. I'm going to guess one more time with another blue and hit enter. Right? No, that was number 9. Let's see. Yeah, so computer selected green, selected blue, computer selected blue. Okay, over here. Okay, so that was number 9. The computer selected green, you selected blue. So I still have one correct guess from this, right? And then I have one last one, which is red. I'm going to type in blue and hit enter. The computer selected blue, you selected blue. So over here I got a correct guess because blue and blue. See, blue and blue. Over here to I got another one. The 10th one I got blue and blue. So over here he said the user correctly guessed 2 times, and that's correct because I got blue over here and blue over here. Everything else over here, see, over here is green and blue, over here it's green and blue, over here is blue and red. Everything else wasn't a match. Everything else wasn't a match. But it was able to tell, as it was able to ask me 10 times. You can see 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it was able to tell that I guessed correctly 2 times. And we are using methods, keeping the program very logical and very organized. So we can, for example, put all these methods, where is it? We can put all these methods in a file. Okay, I mean not including the imports. You can put all these methods here in a file, and all we do is just write this. All we do is just write this block here like this, and this block will get the job done. We'll basically do exactly how basically run the program. Run the program correctly. So actually that's what's happening with let's say system.out.println. Someone has already defined what's going to happen when we use system.out.println. It's already been defined for us, so all we have to do is just call the method and pass in what we want to display, and it does it for us. Now we define our methods above, our own methods above here, and when we call it here, this way it does what we said it should do. When we say display user correct guesses, it is displaying the user correct guesses. We can see it. You can see that it's displaying the user correct guesses here. The user correctly guessed 2 times. So we can tell that it's working. Okay. If you have any questions, please comments down below, and I'll do everything to respond to them. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time with the next program. All right. Bye-bye.